But I also love, again, the subtext of Quint being out on the pulpit where Brody was too afraid to go,
Yes,
and just being
yes,
calm and collected and being like, hey, I have no problem being out here.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
many little bits of subtext in this movie.
yeah. And they give you, so they show that shot, which is a fantastic shot again of him on the pulpit, and then they give you this perception of the passage of time because there's like a whistling, and I always took it that
Mhm.
Quint was whistling
Yeah.
out there, and the scene gets darker.
Hmm.
And then there's this scene that everybody always says, like, well, what is that? And it's they show this boat from a distance, and there's meteors going by in the sky,
I
shooting
think that actually
stars.
happens later.
Does it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that happens after the Indianapolis. I've got a
Okay.
note on that, I
Okay.
think. Yeah, because it's after Brody fires at the shark with his own gun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's actually two meteors, and yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
So the next scene, so they give us the illusion of sundown, and
Yes.
that's a really nice shot. And now we're having dinner,
Hmm.
and they start joking around. I love this scene because this is the first time that Quint and Hooper seem to have a bit of a camaraderie, comparing their battle scars, which men have this, would tend to have like a one-upsmanship thing, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're going back and forth, one-upping each other on their scars. Poor Brody, again, ever the outsider, wants to chime in and lifts his shirt up to look at a little nick he has across his belly and decides it's not worth jumping into this conversation.
Yeah, I've heard
I
some
love
different.
this.
Yeah, I heard that it's really supposed to be that he has a scar from appendix surgery,
Oh,
which is just like
that
it's
could be, yeah.
surgery. But I've
Yeah.
heard other people think, oh, he was a cop, he must have got shot. And it's like, no, but that doesn't seem, if that was a case, it'd be like, oh, look at this, I got shot.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. I mean,
that would be
that's
like comparative to their injuries, but like
right.
a surgery, nah, it's just, yeah,
Yeah, because
he thinks
as a
about it and he
yeah,
puts it down.
as a guy, that's kind of badass, right? To say I survived being shot with a
Shot.
gun,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
absolutely. It's as badass as any of their stuff, but
Absolutely. Oh, I got bit by a mako shark. Really? I got shot.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah, or
know,
stabbed.
or
A
stabbed.
guy
Yeah.
knifed me. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, something like
Now,
that.
I have been maced and I have been stabbed.
Ooh,
I have been shot at, never shot, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, it's a typical male thing to do if you've got the scars and you're trying to assert dominance again. Hey, I've been through worse something than you have. It's very typical male bonding to at least gain, if you're not gaining dominance, to at least gain the respect of the other person to say, hey, I've seen some shit.
yeah, and it actually starts off. They harken back because, as we said, Brody's uh, he got cut on his head.
Oh, right. Yeah. Hmm.
And so it starts off with Quint going, "Oh, don't worry, Chief. It won't be permanent. You want to see permanent." And it's kind of joking at first. He like pulls out a false tooth or
Hmm.
whatever, and then it sort of escalates. And then you get the great kind. There's two great jokes. One is then Hooper's like, "I got the creme de la creme," wound or whatever, and he pulls open his shirt a little bit and he points at his heart, and Brody kind of quietly goes, "You're wearing a sweater," because he's so hairy, you know.
Right.
And then yeah, Hooper's like, "No, Mary Ellen Moffat, she broke my heart," and they're just laughing like hysterically.
At this point, I should add that the apricot brandy has kicked in, and
Yeah.
they're relieving some tension here. They've had dinner. Nothing's really happening with the shark at this point. They can't proactively do anything because it's pitch black outside. So they're really kind of relieving some stress. But that's part of why everything at this point is just so funny to them, is because of the alcohol. And even Quint is breaking his persona a little bit by smiling and giggling a little bit. Not as much as Hooper is, because Hooper's just lost it. He's just giddy at this point.
Yeah. And um also one little subtle thing that I had to be pointed out to me, I didn't notice, but there's like three plates for them, and there's one plate that's still full of food, and you get the sense that's because Brody is has been seasick, that he doesn't want to
Oh.
eat or whatever.
Mhm.
But the other two guys, their plates are empty, like
Mhm.
they ate.
Well, they're
Um,
boat experience, right?
yeah. So
Yeah.
it makes
Mhm.
sense in the whole thing. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Huh. That's interesting. I did not know that.
yeah, it's another one of these things. Again, if you rewatch the movie, it's just like, oh,
Mhm.
look at that. Yeah,
Right.
there's a point in there. Yeah,
So at this point, Brody looks at Quint and he sees a little scar and he goes, "What's that one?" Because it's, a scar that Quint hasn't talked about yet. And the conversation is kind of dying down a little bit after Hooper's joke about Mary Ellen Moffat. And Quint, he's a little shy about opening up about this. And of course, Hooper's gotta make another joke because he's drunk. He goes, "Let me guess, mother," because that was a very common semen tattoo that you would get. I don't know what the backstory behind that is, but you would get mother on your arm or whatever in a heart. And so he just Quint's not really expanding, but he just kind of matter of factly says that's from the USS Indianapolis. And at that point, Hooper kind of sobers up pretty quick. And he
yeah,
goes, "You were on the Indianapolis?" Kind of now, I think it dawns on him a little bit about why Quint is the person he is, because obviously Hooper knows the history of the Indianapolis and how it relates to sharks. And, realizing that, hey, this guy has seen death, he survived this. And Brody is intrigued, and he goes, "Hey, what happened?" He's like, "Hey, tell us a story. Tell us about
yeah,
this, historic event from your perspective." And Quint delivers to this day what I think is one of, if not the greatest monologues in film history. How this man was not nominated for an Academy Award for this speech is absolutely beyond me.
yes,
But this was kind of a happy accident
yes,
because the day before they shot this, they tried to shoot this. And he thought it would help him if he was inebriated when he delivered the speech. So, of course, in typical Robert Shaw fashion, he got really drunk
yeah.
and then
Method
couldn't,
acting or
and then,
whatever.
yeah, and he couldn't deliver the speech. It
Yeah,
was terrible. He actually apologized to Stephen the next day. Stephen was apparently, from the story that I heard, he was very calm about it. He goes, "We'll just do it again." And I think that really encouraged him to be all in, to deliver the best damn speech he could possibly deliver. And boy, did he.
yeah. And I also uh, read where, well, first, a couple things. Well, I got three things to mention
Okay.
here. First, sorry, I always
No.
have a lot, but first off, this is a thing where like we are so in a different place culturally now, because a young person today seeing that and he goes, "A tattoo, I got that removed," they'd think he was in a relationship and it was the woman's name and he got that
Oh,
removed, because
right,
that happens all
right,
the time nowadays.
right.
People, "I'm
Yeah.
going to be in love with you forever, Mary," and then
Hmm.
Mary's gone. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's why my tramp stamp has my own name on it.
yeah. Yeah, in fact, I think I told you in our Rory Gallagher episodes how he's got a song called "Tattooed Lady,"
Hmm.
and when he was on the Midnight Special, Bill Withers introduced the song, and he goes, "Oh, when I was in the Navy, I saw a lot of tattooed men like Quint,
Hmm.
but
Right.
never a tattooed lady." And I'm just like, nowadays, I could find you a tattooed lady in 2 minutes.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, he never met Lydia.
yeah.
Lydia, the tattooed lady.
Yeah. Um, so anyway, uh, one of the things that I learned fairly recently is that story about the Indianapolis was actually classified up until like very shortly before the movie was made. That
Really?
the military did not release the details of that. They knew the ship was torpedoed and it went down, but the whole details of the shark stuff and them not being rescued for several days or whatever, that had been kept secret because,
Liability, right?
and I think, was it Robert Zemeck, somebody, one of the producers, I think, or somebody, their housekeeper, when I don't know, she heard about the scene. I think it was before the movie came out or whatever. She was like crying and she said, "Now I know how my son died or my brother
Oh,
died or something." It was
wow.
like because he was on the ship and never, but they never knew. They thought he
Mhm.
just, got killed on the ship. So that
Wow.
was amazing. And
Mhm.
then,
I would imagine it would have to be because of liability, right? If they, but I mean,
well, the
if
military,
people died in active duty, the military would be responsible for that. So
the
they would have had to pay out benefits regardless, right?
yeah, there's a whole story. Well, we talked about it a little in a text back and forth offline.
Mhm.
There's a whole story about that and what the military did afterwards, which is so typical military trying to scapegoat people, and they blame the
Yeah.
captain. They actually held a court martial of the captain, and they had the Japanese submarine commander that sunk the ship essentially testify against the U.S. captain at a U.S. court martial.
Wow.
How awful is that? Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
wouldn't they have prosecuted him for war crimes? Like
right,
that's a
yeah,
pretty gutsy thing to go, "Hey, I shot your sub down. Let me tell you where you went wrong."
yeah,
Wow.
crazy. So, but anyway, and then the other thing is about the actual dialogue. They said initially it was like just a short little like couple paragraphs
Mhm.
that they wrote about it. And then somebody rewrote it and it was like 9 pages long. And Spielberg gave it to Robert Shaw, and Robert Shaw says, I can't go on like this for
Yeah.
9 pages. So he took it and he edited it down to like maybe 5 pages or something like
Mhm.
that. So
Yeah.
he had his input into it as well, which I
Mhm.
think is great because it really doesn't seem like this is something written on a page. This seems like a guy telling a traumatic story.
Right. Yeah,
It,
this is a guy speaking from this happened to me, and
yeah,
I often cite Reba McEntire as an amazing example of how to tell a story. And even though she's doing it through music, she doesn't write her songs. So every story that you hear her singing about is a story that she did not live. They're not her experiences, but she delivers them in a way that you feel like you were right there with her while she was going through it. And that is some of the most amazing art that you experience. I get that from Robert Shaw in this scene. I feel very much like he's not just telling the story, because he's somewhat catatonic in a way. I imagine that he's actually visualizing, remembering when he was in the water, when he was waiting for the sharks, when the shark would come and they would bash at him with an oar or whatever they had. I get the impression that he's reliving it and not just telling the story. And there's a big difference between those two.
yeah. And I think I don't know to like with everything. I don't know if there's like folklore about the making of the movie or something,
Mm.
but I had heard that it was Robert Shaw that came up with the line about a shark's eyes being like a doll's eyes,
Mm.
lifeless eyes. Um, but just the whole speech, and there's one point where I think it's the part where he says, by the time we got to the end of the first dawn, we we'd lost whatever it was, 500 men or something. His voice quivers,
Yeah.
but then straightens out, and that is so real because if
Mhm.
you've told a traumatic story yourself or you hear somebody tell a traumatic story, you start to break up, but then you gain control of your emotion again
Mhm.
and continue on with the
Yeah.
story. It's why it's so riveting because it really, really seems
Right.
like he was there and he's reliving it.
Yeah,
It,
it's like the muscle memory is kicking in,
yes.
and
Yeah.
that as an actor to be able to pull that off is a pretty incredible technique. You mentioned 9 pages for the story. Now, typically, a page of script will equate to about 1 minute of screen time. So, to take 9 minutes to tell that story, you're not going to keep your audience through all of that. I mean,
Right.
there's no way you can tell a 9 minute story and be that engaging in a
Yeah.
film. It's just your audience isn't going to put up with that. But with it being paragraph dialogue, now you're talking potentially a minute and a half to 2 minutes per page. So now you're talking anywhere between, 12 to 18 minutes of telling this story. There is no way even an audience in the 70s, when you could get away with a 20-minute drum solo, is going to put up with being attentive for that long. It's not going to be engaging that long. Not to mention, how long can the actor keep that up? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I did read that there was a bunch of improv, that he was, throwing in some stuff himself. But I think honestly, the benefit of this was really the fact that he screwed it up the day before. That
Yeah.
he just went 1,000% into this, giving it everything he had, and just pulled this off so brilliantly.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Again, I've seen people reacting to the movie, and a couple people going, "I don't know who this actor is, but I'm, you know,
Yeah.
just obsessed with him. What else
Mhm.
was he in?"
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, and I agree how he didn't get a nomination just for that,
Mhm.
because I think it's better than most things I've seen.
Oh
I
yeah.
The only thing I could compare it to, which I always thought was absolutely brilliant, is a movie that you talked about, the scene between Jack Lemmon and Al Pacino
Mhm.
near the end of Glengarry Glen Ross. I just thought the looks on their faces and the way the dialogue is delivered.
Mhm.
Um, to me, the dialogue didn't even matter. I was just
Yeah.
fascinated at the way they looked.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, talk about a movie that was so perfectly cast.
yeah,
They could not have gotten a better group of actors to pull that off, because expression, reaction was so much a part of that film, because that film is 99% dialogue.
yeah, yeah.
It's not a visual film at all.
No,
And I mean, your character is the storm outside, and the
yeah,
fact that it's raining, and the sounds of the rain and all that. But that movie is all dialogue, as a typical David Mamet project would be. And the way those guys pull it off, the dynamic, the timing, is just, it's so unbelievably well done.
yeah, yeah.
But I know that there's a big discrepancy in this story that people talk about. So I just kind of want to clear the air about what the realities are of Quint's story versus the reality of the actual Indianapolis event. I'm just going to move this over. I don't know if this is going to block your view, Mark, but I want to make sure that I say all this correctly. So I checked on this, and the actual script was incorrect on the date. It was not the actor Robert Shaw that was wrong. He said 1,100 men went into the water June the 29th, 1945. The actual date of the Japanese submarine sinking the Indianapolis was July 30th of 1945. So that was an error in the screenplay, not an actor issue.
Okay.
And that was according to, believe it or not, Encyclopedia Britannica. I went
Ah.
old school on this,
Oh
Mark.
wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Physically had that? Not
No,
on
no,
not on a disc or anything?
digital copy of
Oh,
the
okay.
Encyclopedia
I would have been
Britannica.
really impressed if you had the volume.
Yeah,
Yeah.
having moved about 30 times in my life, I would not have
Okay.
physical encyclopedias. But yes,
Yeah. I wonder if
so
Pete has any
I would
physical.
not
I'll
be
have to ask him.
surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
I
think
know
he does.
I did when we were kids. I know we had a set.
Yeah.
So the truth of the matter is that of the nearly 1,200 men that were on board, as many as 900 initially survived the actual sinking of the boat. But it took 4 days for the survivors to be rescued. So obviously, hundreds of people died, but it wasn't all from shark attacks. Some people succumbed to injuries from
Hmm.
the initial torpedoes and damage during the sinking of the boat and trying to escape. Some drowned. Some died of dehydration or exposure to just the elements, and some were killed by sharks. So there's no way to know how many were actually eaten by sharks. But the one fact that is correct is that at the end of the day, only 316 of the 1,100 people did survive.
Yeah. And I also it was a plane that came and picked them up
Mhm.
initially too. It wasn't a boat. Um,
Yeah.
so
Well,
when
a plane spotted them, I
right.
think, and then called for the boat to come help, because I mean, 316 people being airlifted out one at a time would be pretty tough. Plus, the plane can't be stationary to pick them up.
Well, I thought he says a big fat PBY came down, and I thought that's a
Oh, is that like one of those helicopters, maybe?
no. I think it's a you know, an
Oh, a water
ocean
plane.
water
Oh,
plane.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And that
Because
might
then
be.
he says, you know, a young pilot, much younger than you, Mr.
Mhm.
Hooper. Yeah. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. And I wonder if that's where they got the idea to put the helicopter in Jaws 2, because a helicopter comes down and lands trying to save the kids. So that would make sense if that idea is, came from that story.
yeah,
Yeah.
that could be. Yeah.
But regardless of the error, not a big deal. At the end of the day, the whole point was they delivered the bomb. His understanding or his reasoning for why this all happened was because the mission had been so secret that they didn't send a distress signal, even though if the bomb had been delivered at that point, it's delivered.
Yeah.
Why would it be so odd that a submarine would be in the waters where there's a war going on? I don't think it would be. It doesn't seem to me that it would be so out of place that they would be patrolling that area.
Yeah. 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 I don't know.
And
And
then
that's
one final correction on that is that the submarine did not actually deliver the bomb. The submarine delivered the components that they needed to complete the bomb, but the submarine did not actually have like the full bomb on it that could have been detonated and blown up, blowing up the submarine. It just had the final components that allowed them to finish the bomb and shoot it off. Which I mean, obviously incredibly important to the mission, but yeah, and then the whole Hiroshima thing happened.
yeah, yeah. And I love how so he goes through this emotional story, and then that's capped with it. He raises his glass, and sort of a smile comes back to his face, and it's like, but we delivered the bomb.
Right.
It's kind of that's how he gets himself emotionally out of it, I
Hmm.
think, at the
Yeah.
end.
It was
And
worth it because we did the job.
yeah.
Yeah, but he
And then
also says in there, I'll never put a life jacket on again.
yes, yeah, he talks about how the time he was most scared is when the plane or the boat that's picking him up, he's waiting for his turn to get out of the water because they couldn't pull everybody out right away. And that was the time he was most scared, which kind of makes sense, right? Where I don't know, not necessarily a situation like that, but you're in situations where uh, it's like you see the end and it's going to be a good ending, but maybe there's still I got to get by this point before I get to that end. So I got to
Right.
get out of the
Yeah.
water before I
Mhm.
survive.
Right.
And
Right.
it's like the trepidation of that final thought is really scary.
But
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine you're there just trying to stay afloat, just trying to be able to breathe and hopefully survive long enough until maybe somebody comes and rescues you. Just that natural fight for survival because you don't have flight. I mean, you can't. There's nowhere to go. You're pretty much out of options. But so you're just fighting to stay alive. But in the meantime, at any second, a shark could just come up from the depths. You won't even know it's there. You'll just feel it and you're done. And I can't even begin to wrap my mind around what that does to a person.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Way worse than if you can see what's going to kill you. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because at least if you can see it, you feel like you can do something. I mean, you
Yeah.
can, as he even said, so you'd see people pounding at him and trying to get him to go away. Like you at least feel like you have some element of chance. But
Yeah.
if you're just floating there and the shark comes up from underneath or behind you, it's not like you hear them. They're just all of a sudden there because you're in the water. You don't have sound, you don't have a sense of anything. And I can't imagine too many things that you could experience being more frightened than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the question becomes, I mean, obviously this has shaped Quint's character and shaped perhaps why he hunts sharks
Hmm.
and some of the things that will happen going forward. But is it a hatred of sharks? Is it a I always took it as a little bit of it's an unresolved, you know, PTSD with him
Hmm.
that he never really dealt with, you know, that fear he felt and whatever, and even the fact that now I'll never put on a life jacket again. So basically, he hopes if he goes in the water and there's sharks, he just drowns and dies
Right. Yeah.
rather than face that. But
Mhm.
then it's like I'm out on the ocean hunting sharks, putting myself almost in that danger. Is there a
Mhm.
death wish there?
Yeah, yeah, there
Uh,
could be.
or is it just a pure obsession with sharks? Or is it his own demons that he's hunting by hunting the sharks? It's really left up
Yeah.
to the
Yeah,
viewer.
the psychology of it is absolutely fascinating, and I think it's probably a combination of all those things. I think it's one of those things like for every shark that I take out of the water, that's a shark that's not going to put somebody through what I went through, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
And I mean, typically, I would imagine most of those sets of teeth that we see on his wall are probably great whites.
Hmm.
You know, the ones that I've noticed anyway, they have like that certain mouth shape. They have the rows of teeth because the way that sharks are, they have rows and rows of teeth, and when they lose a tooth, another one just pops right into its place. It's almost like a machine gun. You know,
Hmm.
when you shoot a bullet, the next one just pops right into line, and so they really are, you know, eating machines, as Hooper said earlier. So I think it probably is a combination of all those things. Like maybe I shouldn't have lived, and I'm going to keep putting myself in this position until I don't. Maybe it's I'm going to take every one of these out with me while I'm still here to do it. Um, you know, I'm sure
Yes.
there's a lot of factors that really break down in the psychology of Quint.
Yeah. Yeah. And then yeah, the scene sort of makes a few transitions kind of quickly here.
Mhm.
So then it
Yeah.
gets a little quiet because they're thinking about his story.
Mhm.
And then Quint starts sort of faintly singing the farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies again.
Mhm.
And Hooper, I think, tries to, lighten the mood a little bit, but starts singing that show me the way to go home,
Mhm.
which apparently they all know that
Right.
song.
Yeah.
They all start singing it, and it gets very jovial for a little bit of time
Mhm. I think
until,
they needed a tension release after that story and
yeah,
everything they've been through up to this point. Because I mean, for them, you know, we only get a glimpse of what they've been through. They've been through this for a whole day already, at least, and we think probably 2 days at this point that they've been out on the water. And that the fighting, the seasickness and everything else. I mean, it's a lot that these people have been put through. And yeah, so they all get into it. They start banging on the table, and uh, this might be an interesting tie into Jaws 2 because they talk about, and this kind of sets up the ending of Jaws 2, is they talk about sharks being attracted to noise. And the banging is what actually is kind of the chum in Jaws 2 because Brody takes an oar and bangs it against this power line to attract the
yeah,
shark. And so, right when they start really getting into the song and they're speeding up the tempo, they're all singing, they're all having fun, and they're banging on the table. Now we get a glimpse from outside the boat, and the shark's like, oh, these guys. And we now see the fruits of that beacon. We see the little light going off and quickly heading back towards the boat again in the pitch black. And this is why that little beacon that Hooper put on is relevant because they would not be able to pull off this scene in the pitch black any other way.
yeah, yeah. And did we get the scene with the meteors yet?
Not
Is
yet.
that not yet? Okay.
That's coming up right after this.
I keep going back to that one for some
Yeah.
reason. I don't
Well,
want to
there's
forget about it.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, there's a good point that comes with that.
Yeah.
So while they're singing, all of a sudden you hear this pounding and we see the boat starting to crack a little bit. We see a little bit of water starting to seep through. But here's one where I do have to say I have a logistical issue with this because a shark is not going to slam in the boat, back up, hit the boat again, back up, hit the boat again, like you're running over your ex in a car. I don't think it would be able to get back far enough and speed up with enough velocity to
Yeah.
keep hitting it like that. Like that's the
In the
one
same spot.
unrealistic. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I do have an issue with as far as the storytelling goes, because I do think that is a bit unrealistic.
Yeah. I could see it like broadsiding the boat
Hmm.
again and again, but not,
Yeah,
yeah, in the same spot, like with its snout. You get the
right.
sense that it's with its snout, and I'm like, no, I don't think, I don't think that would be happening. Yeah,
Right. And with the size of the shark versus the size of the boat, certainly it would be pushing it, like it would hit it and just push it. And you
yeah,
don't get the sense that that boat is being knocked around in the water. You just get the sense it's being hit.
yeah, yeah.
So, and as we'll see in a minute, that shark has the ability to drag that boat anywhere it damn well pleases.
Mhm.
So again, I find this a bit unrealistic, but the guys jump right out of there, being inebriated and being all into the song. They jump right up and get to work. They go right out there. Quint grabs the gun. He's ready to shoot that shark again.
Mm. Oh,
And
but
yeah.
importantly though, um, Brody goes to the radio. It goes to pick up the radio, and Quint drops the lantern and starts a fire to stop Brody from using the radio. And he very calmly says, "Put the fire out there, Chief, will you?"
Hmm.
Which is a forebearer to something that happens a little later. Um, and then, yeah, then they head out on the deck and start getting into
Right.
action.
Well, the
Yeah.
thing with the radio doesn't happen until daytime.
Well, no, I'm not talking about the thing with the baseball bat.
Oh,
This is the
that's right.
scene.
Yeah, he stops the chief. That's right. He does
Yeah,
stop the chief there. Yeah.
and it's like it's subtle.
Hmm.
You blink and you miss the fact that Quint started that fire on purpose to
Oh, do you think he
distract.
did?
Yes, if you watch it carefully, he definitely did. It's not
Wow.
like, and that's where you get a forebearing of like, he doesn't. Earlier, also, remember when Brody's wife calls on the radio?
Mhm.
I forget where that comes in the movie,
Oh, yeah.
and Quint just blows it off quickly. Again, not want to give any inclining to what they're dealing with out there.
Hmm.
He's just like, oh, we've been fishing. He caught a couple stripers. We'll bring them home for dinner. Bye.
And he says it so fast as if she
Yeah,
could, as if to stop her from interrupting him, which you can't
yeah,
do on a CB radio, by the way.
yeah,
But yeah, he's just like, yeah, we got a couple of stripers. We're going to bring them in for dinner. We'll be so home soon. Bye.
yeah. And then I think also,
But
um,
I think he did that because he didn't want anybody to know he was on the radio because he didn't want them to come in and interact. I think he's
yes,
like, let me get rid of these people real quick so I can, go back out there and deal with the shark and not give Brody a chance to talk to his wife.
yeah. But also, I think it's it's yeah. I think before the night where Quint gives his speech there, as the sun's going down, don't you hear Brody kind of going, "Yeah, but we could radio in and get a bigger
Uh-huh.
boat." Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like we've got one barrel in them.
Hmm.
We
Yeah.
we stay out here till we find them again. And Brody's like, we could radio in and get a bigger boat. So I think that's where we get the intensity of Quint. Quint is not having anybody else in on this but
Right.
him.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
don't think this is about the money at this point, especially
No.
after telling the Indianapolis story and remembering what happened and why he hunts sharks to begin with. I think now this has turned into a much deeper mission for him.
Yeah.
But I
But
have
it's
to
like,
wonder about that line though when Brody says we could radio in and get a bigger boat. Was that in the script or was that something that was added because he had said that line about you're going to need a bigger boat?
yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, but it sets up perfectly. Well, first of all, it's very Brody's character is very consistent in that he's practical,
Mhm.
where some of these other guys aren't. Because remember, Hooper goes down to look at Ben Gardner's boat, and Brody was like, "No, but we could tow it in."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
so we get the same thing here. It's like Brody's looking at this shark and is like, "This boat ain't big enough, and we
Mhm.
should radio in and get a bigger one." But I think
Yeah.
that's an important point because then it sets up the thing where he starts the fire on purpose to distract Brody from getting on the
I did
radio.
not realize he did
Yeah,
that. That is a
yeah,
fascinating point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So at this point, it's still dark outside. We've got enough moonlight to where we can kind of see everybody and understand what they're doing. So we just have just enough light, which I think is interesting because it kind of shows that they're doing everything they can, but there's only so much you can do. So Quint gets out the rifle and he starts shooting at the shark, and Hooper's like, Quint, don't waste your time. And Brody, in his fear, also gets out his handgun and starts also shooting at the shark because a handgun is way more powerful than a rifle. But it's really, I think it's fear, and just especially because it's at night and he feels more helpless and he just feels like he has to do something.
Yes.
He's been pretty powerless through this whole thing. I think he's trying to find something in him, that is some fight in him, and maybe it was because of the Indianapolis story that he's like, hey, they fought, I'm going to fight too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he does seem to try and find something in himself at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you see that he's scared, and you hear Hooper going, Martin, Martin, are you okay? And you see this streak across the sky, which I always thought was just a happy accident, and that was something that just happened. But apparently, that was actually added. They added that in digitally after the fact. And I thought it was because Steven Spielberg was saying, keep looking at the skies because my next movie is Close Encounters.
Oh.
But he didn't know. He had the idea to do an alien movie, but he didn't have Close Encounters yet. So it wasn't that. It was something that they just thought would be cool, because shortly after that, they do a long shot of the boat that you can see the silhouette in the moonlight, and there's another comet. That comet was real, and then they decided to add the one in the scene, in the shot before it. So one comet was real, one comet wasn't. Just kind of continuity, like, hey, there's a meteor shower going on. It's not like one random comet in all of this.
Because there's in early to mid-August, there's a meteor shower every year, the Perseids, and I always assumed that's when they were filming those scenes.
Oh, yeah,
but I didn't realize that sort of closer up one was added.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
and it does streak across the sky a little bit herky jerky.
Okay,
it's not like a smooth shot across the sky like you would see an airplane or something like that. It is a little bit chunky. So, but an interesting fact just the same.
Yeah, because the distant one definitely looks real.
Yeah,
like if you've seen them, it's like that's what they look like. Other than maybe a little bit of the speed, like maybe they slowed it down just a tad.
Right, which they may have. I mean, you can certainly slow down the frame rate of the film. So they've had yet another close call with the shark. Still haven't really made any progress other than one barrel up to this point. After everything that's happened, they've gotten one barrel in them.
Yeah.
So now it's daytime. They're doing some boat repair, and guess what happens? The barrel comes up, and it's just floating there. And again, in 1975, we didn't know a lot about sharks. So I have to take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. But one thing we do know about sharks now is that they have to be in motion to breathe. So the idea of a shark just letting the barrel surface, or the barrel taking him up to the surface and not moving around so it can breathe, kind of an impossibility.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, it's 1975 or 74 when they're shooting this. We don't know that, so no disparaging comments on the filmmakers at all. I don't mean it that way. I'm just thinking of it in today's world, how different this scene would have to be because we have that knowledge.
Yeah. In fact, I never really thought about it actually, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So we get that, and then that's when they do there was a jump scare. What was the jump scare? I can't remember what it was now. It was something. Was it the shark popping out of the water again? Yeah, they were trying to Hooper had the boat hook, and he was trying to bring the barrel in.
Yes, he's trying to bring the barrel in. They're tying it off to the cleats on the back of the boat.
That's when
right?
they have two barrels, I think. At this
Oh,
point,
okay.
Hooper's grabbing the rope and Quint's saying, now drop that rope when he runs because you'll lose your
That's right.
hands. And then he
Yes.
goes, hey, give it to me. And then the shark pops up again. That's when Brody's had enough. And he goes into the office to make the phone call. That's when Quint's like, I'm going to put an end to this once and for all. We're out here on our own. And he goes and smashes the hell out of the radio.
Yeah.
Now, the thing I like about this is, again, here's another opportunity for us to show how inept Brody is because he doesn't know how to work the radio.
Yeah.
You know, I love that. He's like tapping on it, Coast Guard, Coast Guard, can anybody
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah.
Not understanding again that a CB communication is one way. You cannot, it's not a phone. You can't have two people on it at the same time. You have to say something and wait. You know, you have
Yeah.
to release control and wait for somebody on the other side. So, you know, he just takes the baseball bat, smashes the radio to bits, then hands the bat to Brody, which I thought was great because it's like, I trust that you're not going to do anything to retaliate so much. I'm just going to give you the bat.
Yeah, and also like the way it's filmed, it's like you think that he's gonna hit Brody, not the
Yeah.
radio at
Yeah.
first. And almost like Brody thought that too, because he ducks out of the way,
Yeah.
and then they have a little effect of sparks coming out of the radio too when it's
Mhm.
well, I guess it could have been tubes still
Right.
back
Yeah.
then, you know,
Mhm.
whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, because
But
Brody gets in a defensive post as if Quint's going to hit him. And I mean, granted, somebody walks into a room with a baseball bat and an aggressive pose. Yeah, you're going to get into a defensive position, you know.
yeah.
So at this point now, Brody is just unhinged and he's actually screaming at Quint. And Quint's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, doesn't defend his actions. He just literally is not caring at all about Brody and his being upset. And then, you know, to break this up, because I don't know where this would have gone had it not
Yeah.
been broken up. Hooper's like, oh, boys, you know, quit bickering because we got bigger problems out here. The shark is back.
Yeah, for his noon feeding or some
Mhm.
line like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
at this point, and this is again where it does get a little confusing to me. This is where they shoot him with the second barrel.
Yeah.
And so here's my notes through this scene. So it says, so barrel two, this is an amazing shot. Again, the timing of this, how they got the shark to move right into position at the time, the camera angle, they get, obviously they've done a close up where they can, you know, be right near it and shoot the harpoon through the fin so that they can get an accurate shot and get what they need. But just the overall shot of this, the timing of it, the way that it's either edited or filmed is absolutely amazing. And some of this had to have been on set timing. It just had to be because you can only edit around things so much when you're doing a wider shot and you see everything in frame and certain actions happen. That's caught on camera.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how many days or how many takes it took to get there, I don't know. But at the end of the day, absolutely stunning shot. But so we get the overhead of Quint and Hooper with the shark moving in the water. Quint shoots him again in the dorsal fin. But then when they're following the shark, it looks like there's only one barrel. So I don't know if it looks like the second barrel took off, it left the boat, but we're only seeing one barrel on the shark. So I don't know if that was an editing continuity error or what's actually going on there. Then Brody shoots him again with the gun, and there's no barrels on the shark. But then the third barrel but then the third barrel comes off the boat, but there's only two on the shark, and there's only two left on the boat. Did we lose a barrel somewhere?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a little confused as to the location mapping of all the barrels and what the shark's carrying and what he isn't at this point. The shark should have three barrels in him at this point.
Yeah. I confess, as much as I'm a geek and obsessed with this movie, I never really counted the barrels.
Yeah.
But I could see where you might have some continuity issues, maybe even physically and timing wise when the scenes were filmed, right?
Right.
You know. And when is the scene again? Just another fantastic shot where you see the reflection in Brody's glasses of the barrel, the shark going by, dragging the barrels. I
I
forget where
remember,
that happens, but
yeah, I know the scene that you're talking about. I think it's during one of the chase scenes,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that is a stunning shot.
Yes. Yeah, it's just like it's almost again, it's something you might see in real life. Like
Hmm.
you weren't looking towards the shark, you're looking towards Brody, and you see it
Right,
reflected in
right.
his glasses.
Hmm.
That is Spielberg, I guess.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, and again, how they had to physically make that work to pull that off is
yeah,
again just a stunning feat of filmmaking. Now,
yeah,
in today's world, if they were shooting this film today, you would have somebody in charge of the continuity of the barrels. There would be
sure,
somebody actually responsible for knowing where all the barrels are at what time in what scene, so that they don't have any of those continuity errors. In fact, when they shot the show Lost, it was one person's job just to track all the guns and ammo
yeah,
for the
yeah,
entire show.
yeah,
Pretty amazing. So you wouldn't necessarily be running into quite those issues now. Uh, they're shooting this in 74, obviously a different world, but it's something that you're really only going to notice if you're really scrutinizing, if you're really paying attention and looking to see that continuity. That just happens to be a thing that I see by nature as continuity.
yeah,
But yeah, this is stunning. So now they've got three barrels in them, and all three barrels pop up again, and so they start trying to again attach the shark to the boat so that they can bring him in. And this is where things just kind of go off the rails with again Brody just not paying attention, being the inept seaman that he was never meant to be, and traps Hooper between the boat and the rope. Looks very, very painful, especially the way that that rope snaps down on him as the shark tries to pull away. So they get him freed. Hooper almost falls off the boat, which would have been a whole different movie had that happened.
yeah,
And they're trying to tie the rope to these metal cleats that are attached to either side of the back, so that they can now overpower the shark, drag the shark back to to the shore where the water is not as deep, and just drown him. Because if the shark can't swim, the shark can't breathe, and it drowns. But that's not going to work for a couple of reasons. One, because that shark is more powerful than the boat, and two, because the boat is in a pretty bad state of repair at this point, and there's not much they can do. So they have to cut the ropes, and everybody's just kind of, well, it's really more Quint's arrogance,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Again, it's funny. I seem like I'm very knowledgeable about the first half in terms of
Mhm.
sequence, but I struggle in the second half. I think because it's so intense that
Yeah.
it's just. Um, where is the scene where the shark comes out of the water and it's kind of gnawing at the ropes? And this is where like Brody all of a sudden, like his fear is momentarily gone, because he's like, look at that, he's eating right through that line, like
Mhm.
fascinated. And Hooper's like,
Yeah.
yeah, right up towards us, you know.
Okay, that's when they shoot him with the third barrel, because they
Okay.
shoot him right in the throat.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And you'd think that that would really impede the shark's progress, but apparently he's like, eh.
Yeah. Just pissed him off more.
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
about as caring as Quint was when Brody was yelling at him. He's like, yeah, you shot me. That's nothing.
Yeah.
Barely felt
Yeah.
it. But yeah, I think I am going a little bit out of order here.
Yeah.
So at this point, they try to get the shark to chase them, which he actually does, and they're all up on the second level. Quint is driving the boat, and he's saying we're going in, and Brody's like, "Thank Christ!"
Yeah.
And they have this moment where the shark disappears again, and I can't remember exactly where it is, but Hooper says to Quint, he goes, "Did you ever have one do this before?" And he's like, "No."
No.
And I think
Yeah.
he kind of realizes that they're in a little bit over their head at this point,
Yeah.
and later Brody will ask Hooper, "Have you ever had one do this?" And Hooper's like, "No." Like
Yeah.
he's like, no, like I'm mad about this, and you know, don't even ask me because I don't want to have it. But he's just repeating what Quint had told him, you know. But he's like really attacking Brody almost in that response.
Yeah.
But we get this scene where they're driving the boat, and Quint is at the helm, and Hooper's like, slow down, it's not going to take it. They're finally getting the shark. They can't attach the shark to the boat because he'll pull out the transom and just ruin the boat. They'll sink. And so the only play they've really got at this point is to hope that the shark will follow him, which it does. And so Quint's like, all right, we found our way. We're going to make this work. And he starts pushing the boat the more Hooper tells him to slow it down. And he's like, you're going to burn out the bearings. And then you see the smoke coming out from the engine room. And then Hooper goes down to inspect it. There's an explosion, which Hooper was very close to that explosion, by the way.
Yeah. And all kinds of planks and stuff fly up.
Yeah. So now everything is just a mess because they're kind of stranded at this point.
Yeah.
And I have to applaud, as a side note, because I realize I'm out of order now, but I have to applaud the filmmakers as a side note, because as I talked about the explanation for why they're shooting the shark with these barrels, think about the scene where we see the shark coming towards the boat with 3 barrels on him, and he just goes under the boat, the barrels disappear. How much weight, how did they make that scene even work? Where they were actually able, because you know there's actually air in those barrels to get them to float. To make that part of the scene work, but they dipped them all under the water. I have no idea how they did that. But they made that scene work so beautifully. It's just flying, they're moving, and then they just dip under right before they get to the boat. Amazing shot.
Yeah, and they're moving forward, so they dive like a submarine would dive, not they just go straight down. You know, it's really well filmed.
It is,
I wanted to, you know, getting back to Quint pushing the boat so hard. Again, like that always struck me as the motivation thing, like that. I don't, not sure I understand. I could see where he smashed the radio because like no one's getting the shark, but me, kind of like that obsession. But for him to, it seems like he deliberately ruins the boat. And is that the death wish thing? Like what? I don't know, because Hooper keeps telling him like you're pushing it too hard, and then he physically pushes Hooper away, and Hooper just goes to Brody, hold on, we're screwed, you know, basically.
I think it was more, I'm not going to let you tell me what to do. I'm gonna drive my boat the way I want, and just assuming that it would be okay. Like I'll take the consequences over being told what to do, because that's kind of his nature anyway. But it seems like, as somebody who is in danger and has realized at this point that they don't have a lot of options, and his plan isn't going to work because they can't attach the shark to the boat in any way. The shark's gone down with 3 barrels on him. And by the way, he says that line twice exactly the same. You know, at first he's like, he can't stay down with 3 barrels, not with 3 he can't. And then he repeats it exactly the same later, which I always thought was a little bit weird.
Okay.
But at this point, it's like, for him to put the boat in danger, they're moving, the shark's following him, stay the course and you'll get there. So I think Hooper antagonizing him became more important than the safety of the boat and the mission. It kind of brought him out of the mission and says, I'm not going to let you tell me what to do again. I'm the captain of this boat. I'm doing it my way, and I'm going to push this even harder now that you've told me I can't do this.
Yeah, I think
actually,
that's
what it was. Yeah,
I would buy into it, because literally when Hooper tells him you're pushing it too hard, he pushes it harder.
Exactly.
He moves that throttle even further forward. So he wasn't full bore to begin with.
Right.
Yeah. So that makes some sense to me, because I always was like, now what the hell is he doing? Like, he's writing their death warrant. If the boat, if the engine dies, now you're stuck out there.
And all once again to the cheery tune of Farewell and Adieu.
Yeah.
But now he's singing it with anger, which is really funny. He's just like he's full on angry at this
Mm,
point, and he's just putting everything into the song. And but he looks at Brody and he just smiles. Like I told you, no one tells me what to do
yeah.
on my boat. That's what I got out of that anyway.
Yeah, and for Brody and Hooper, not only are you dealing with the shark, but now you're dealing with this like guy that he's gone nuts.
Yeah.
He's not rational anymore.
Hmm. Yeah,
You know,
we've lost our trust in him. He's smashed the radio. He's making the boat, worthless. And there was something though that happened, and I'm trying to remember what it was. There was a conversation between Hooper and Brody. Oh, he says something like, "Why don't why?" I can't
oh
remember what Brody's
yeah.
line
Why
was.
don't we start?
What?
Brody, I
Yeah.
think says, why don't we start heading towards shore instead of the shark leading us farther out into the ocean?
Yeah. And did you notice Hooper's gesture?
No.
He looked back at Quint and nodded as if to say, because of him. Like
Oh,
that,
okay.
like you're right, that would be the rational thing to do at this moment. But he's like, because of him.
Yeah. Okay.
Saying like
Yeah.
he doesn't know what he's doing. You can't trust him. He's gonna screw this all up. Like this could
Yeah.
all be over. And he's just, he's got to do it his way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
which
So
I
there's a
thought was interesting because even though we've had a little bit of camaraderie, even though when it comes to the shark, they're actually pretty much working together fairly well as a team, there's still these personality conflicts that are looming,
yeah. Yeah.
you
And
know.
there's sort of and there's definitely a descent in Quint into more and more irrational
Hmm.
as it starts going bad with going after the shark.
Yeah.
I think that's it too. Quint realizes he's losing,
Hmm.
and he loses his mind because he's
Yeah.
losing. Yeah.
And that leads us to something that's very interesting that happens next because they're all standing there on the boat. Nobody can do anything. The boat's not going anywhere. It's just going to go where the tide takes it. They can't defend themselves against the shark anymore. Three barrels, it's not doing anything. And even if it came up, they can't drag it anywhere now. So the barrels are now a worthless component in this situation. And Quint, I think, finally has to admit that he's been bested, but he won't. Even
Yeah.
though it's not just the wealthy college boys that can't admit when they're wrong, because he doesn't ever say he's wrong. He
Right.
doesn't apologize for ruining the boat. He doesn't say I went too far, nothing. The closest thing he does to an apology is says, Hooper, what is it that you can do with this stuff you've got, with this
Yeah.
gear on board? And at that point, that's as close to an apology as anyone's ever going to get out of Quint.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then Hooper tries to explain, well, if I can pump, 10 cc's of whatever in strychnine something into
Mhm.
him, and Quint's like, you can't get that little needle through his hide or whatever.
Yeah.
So like he right away kind of, yeah, this is what he's saying. But yeah, yeah. Um, and also maybe still a little humanity in Quint too. Like this is suicide. You going down there? I
Yeah.
mean, Quint
Right.
essentially told him in the beginning, "You go in that cage,
Hmm.
you're dead."
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But
yeah,
at this point, what are their options? I mean, they've got nothing to defend themselves against. They can't call for help.
yep, yeah,
Although it seems to me Mrs. Brody, being the person that she is, would have called the Coast Guard herself and said, "My husband's been gone on a shark hunt for 2 days. This is the area they're supposed to be. Could you go find him?"
yeah,
Like I
yeah.
could. That's the one
Or
component that we
try to
didn't
call the
get.
boat, and it's like, oh, they're not responding. Maybe we
Right.
should send someone out to look for them.
Well, they never came home for dinner with those stripers either.
No, no, yeah,
So at
yeah,
that point, I mean, you've got a woman who's already on the edge. She doesn't trust Quint. She's terrified of her husband going out on the water. It seems like a logical thing to do for her would have been to call the Coast Guard.
yeah, yeah. Mm,
So a component that wasn't part of the film, it wasn't part of the book. She's really forgotten about entirely by this point
yeah,
anyway. But realistically, I think that would have been so that would have been their only hope, really, is that she just panicked and called for help because they've got nothing at their
yeah,
disposal at this point, literally nothing.
yeah. Or another boat comes by.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
basically, yeah, yeah. Without the radio, and an engine,
Mhm.
you're done.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So at this point, Quint's like, "All right, I guess you're gonna try this cage thing." So they rig it up. Hooper,
Oh,
yeah. Mhm.
one thing before this, doesn't Quint come out with two life jackets?
Oh yeah, right at the beginning of this, when he's giving up and going, "All right, we've got to do something here." He comes out with just the two. He will not put one on.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's an important sort of callback to
Hmm.
his
Yeah,
speech. Yeah.
because eventually it wouldn't have done him a damn bit of good, but
No, no.
in this case, so yeah, so he's kind of resigned at this point. He's like, "Well, I'm going to take care of my crew."
Yes.
And I respect that. I can appreciate that. So they build the cage. He really doesn't say anything to Hooper after that. He's resigned, but he's got nothing to say. I think I have to believe that he feels some element of guilt at this point, and he realizes that Hooper's putting his life on the line because he failed, because Quint failed. And I think he just doesn't know what to say. He doesn't say good luck. He doesn't say, tug if you want us to pull, like nothing. He's just, Hooper's terrified. He can't find any spit to clean his glasses, and he's gonna go in the water. Some more happy accidents slash brilliantly shot film coming up here. The tension is new because now we're in the water again.
Yeah.
And we've only been in the water with tension a couple times when Chrissy was being dragged underwater in the beginning and we could hear her try to scream through being choking down the water, and Hooper when he was inspecting Ben Gardner's boat. This is now a complete departure from our senses, everything that we've been feeling in the movie, because now we're in a whole different environment. We've been on the boat for a good 45 minutes and now we're helpless underwater, looking through Hooper's eyes and just waiting. The tension is unbelievable at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you remember about seeing this the first time?
Yeah, the way it's filmed is just so cool, and also you got a sense because Hooper wears glasses, and Brody takes them from. So you're also like Hooper can't see that well, and the
Right.
water's murky,
Hmm.
and he's in there, and so he gets underwater, and he's trying to sort of he clears his eyes as I think they kind of focus the camera a little better
Hmm.
from when he first gets in there,
Yeah.
but you're just like this is a four-sided cage and he can only look out in one direction at a time.
Right. Yeah. And when you're in the water, you're moving slow. So it's not like you can pivot very
Yeah,
quickly and look in all directions, really fast. So, of course, Shark comes and bumps the cage, goes right for it. And Hooper obviously panicked. I mean, there's no training for this. There's no
right.
preparation. You're not prepared. You're just terrified. And then Shark kind of leaves him alone, and you see them close up on the spear. He hasn't taken the cork off yet, the safety cork. So
Yeah,
even if he had jabbed at that, he'd have to push through the cork, which I would imagine wouldn't be all that difficult. But yeah, so he's made no progress. Shark comes and bumps the cage again, and now, by the way, we have no idea what's going on the boat,
yeah.
and
Oh,
they
what?
have no idea what's going on underwater.
Yeah. What I didn't understand is, did they explain like Quint made that comment of like you can't get this thin needle through his hide, but then
Mhm.
that spear he had looked like some kind of a hefty point on it. Like,
Mhm.
what was that? He put the poison in that spear?
Yeah, so I think the idea is that the needle was too thin to penetrate the shark's skin because shark skin is really dense
Yeah.
and tough, And so I think the idea was that he would be able to either jab the shark in the mouth with that and the poison would go in that way, or maybe he could get that through the gills or something,
Okay.
or be able to pierce the skin because it was a bigger, sharper tip, whereas the needle would probably just break off.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
what my understanding of it was.
Yeah. Okay.
But you would imagine whatever the poison was he was going to put in the syringe. I was thinking he was going to take that syringe and use that to fill the spear where the poison was actually going to get delivered. Because how
Yeah.
are you going to get close enough to inject the shark with a syringe? It's going to
Yeah.
be in motion. You're not going to be able to even pull that off, regardless of that needle breaking.
And why did he have that set up with the
Well,
syringe?
that's why I thought that was just where how you injected the poison into the spear.
Yeah, yeah,
You
okay,
know,
yeah,
just a method of getting the
yeah,
poison inside the
and
tip.
a measurement and stuff. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So, of course, Shark comes up, bumps him from behind. He drops the spear, and we get something that's really kind of cool here that I didn't really notice until I watched it the other day again. We get a little bit of sound design. We actually hear the spear digging into the sand. It's
oh,
very
okay,
brief. You would never hear that in real life because sound does not travel that well in water.
yeah,
But for the people to understand that yes, the spear has hit the ground, you're as an audience, we need those audio enhancements to match the visual and make it a realistic experience. Otherwise, it doesn't seem real.
yeah,
We get that little bit of sand, which I actually liked.
yeah. I also think, and again, intentional or not, the way the spear just kind of slowly kind of glides down into the
Hmm.
sand. It doesn't twirl or anything
Right.
like it's like sad. You
Hmm.
get that feeling of, oh crap.
Yeah.
The only thing they had to kill the shark just floated down to the bottom of the ocean,
Yeah.
like
Once again, now what?
dejectingly,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And so as the shark is bashing the cage, they're cutting away to this amazing footage of that was shot elsewhere by a couple that was hired to get this footage. They put a small person in a smaller size cage to kind of recreate the scale of it and make the shark look bigger. And the shark got caught up in the ropes in real life. And that's what you actually see thrashing around on the top of the cage is the shark trying to free itself. This
yeah,
was an incredibly happy accident because
yes,
this was not intended. You can't script a shark to do certain
do
things. You
that.
just have to get what you get and make it work. But this works because this is why Quint and Brody start pulling the cage up.
Right.
Now, intermittently cut is Richard Dreyfuss trying to hide at the back of the cage, trying to, punch the shark, whatever he can do. And again, you're moving in water, you're moving very slow. Your punches are going to have no impact
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Doesn't he take a knife? Did he have a knife
Hmm.
like on his leg and he pulls that out and is stabbing at it or
Hmm.
whatever, frantically, like
Right.
yeah,
Again,
as you would do.
a throwback to jabbing at him. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
So Hooper, it looks like Hooper escapes the cage. We don't really know how far he gets. We don't really know if the shark gets him or not. That's kind of left up to your own decision. Did he get away or not? Um, at that point, they pull the cage up. The cage is ripped to shreds. But as they're pulling the cage up, the orca's falling apart. They're trying to pull it up, and it pulls down this beam that almost takes Brody out. Then they attach the chain to another bolt that's part of the boat, and that starts to bend, almost breaks. Then they get the cage out of the water. They see it's been ripped to shreds. Hooper's not in it. They drop it back in the water, and now they're like, "Damn, now what do we do?"
Yeah.
I mean, I putting myself in their shoes, the idea of survival and doing whatever you can to grasp on to life. I don't know what you do in this situation. They've got nothing.
Yeah. And I almost again intentional or accidental, but just kind of the way that the cage drops back into the water after they pull it up and realize, well, Hooper's gone.
Yeah.
It is like a throwing up your hands moment, like
Hmm.
exactly what you're saying. Like it just
Yeah.
drops.
Right.
It's like okay, no thought of trying to use the cage to do something else.
Right. Yeah.
This thing got just torn up.
Right. And I mean, incidentally, that could have worked. They could have thrown the cage in the shark's mouth, and that might have helped.
Yeah, yeah,
But I love the way Brody turns away from Quint, and he's just got his hand over his mouth, dealing with the fact that they think that the shark got Hooper,
yeah,
and he will not look at Quint
yeah,
because I think he blames Quint, obviously because of Quint burning out the bearings in the boat and all that. I mean, again, the subtext, the dynamics here, you don't have to say it, you show it. And
mm,
that's one thing I wanted to say about Quint's speech too, is that it goes against filmmaking rules. You don't tell your story, you show your story,
mhm,
right? That's also a thing for authors is you don't write out, here's what they did, you show it through action.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
take them on the journey, you don't explain it. So that is as amazing as that scene was, it really goes against the grains of filmmaking because it's all exposition. But I like that they didn't do flashbacks of all these people in the water and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
raining and they're
No.
screaming. And I'm so glad they didn't do that. I mean, it worked for their budget for sure, but I'm
Yeah.
just so glad they didn't
Well,
go into his imagination.
it adds to the realism of the film that we
Yes.
are on the boat with those three, and that's how Hooper and Brody learn about the story. They're
Hmm.
not they're not getting a real picture of it. They're
Right.
getting the way Quint is describing it with his emotion.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
let our imagination show us the story that Quint is
yeah,
telling us, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think it worked on so many levels. But yeah, that's an interesting thing that they really push some limits on this film, you know, breaking the rules, getting some of these shots, just I can't say enough what an amazing film this is because of so many hundreds of different things that we've talked about, you
yeah,
know, throughout this
yeah.
podcast. So at this point, you know, there's really no action that Quint and Brody can take. They're kind of helpless, but fortunately, I think the shark understands that. And bless his heart, he's going to end this thing. He's like, I'm taking this boat down.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to come at me with a spear and a guy in a cage. I'm done, and I'm just going to. So the shark in this one scene that I understand that people don't like this scene because it's not typical of shark behavior. It is now typical of killer whales to do this,
Oh
but
yeah.
not sharks. Especially, we wouldn't have known this in '74. But Jaws just basically jumps up on the back of the boat, trying to take the boat down and get the active meaty morsels that are inside. Now, if we assume he ate Hooper, Quint said sharks can devour 6 men an hour. He's only had one. There's only two snacks on the plate.
Yeah.
Not a problem for
Yeah.
him to be able to devour these two guys, right? But he doesn't care about anything on the boat. He wants these guys. So now the boat is at an angle. The shark's at the bottom of the angle. The boat is wet and they're wet. So what's going to happen? They're going to slide. And Quint is the first one to go. Brody tries to grab his arm, bless his heart. Quint knows what's coming. And again, he starts screaming. He starts trying to backpedal everything he could do, which a human being would do. You're
Yeah.
going to do everything you can not to fall in the pit, right?
Yeah.
He falls in the pit. But on the way, he somehow finds that what is it? A big knife that he left on the side of the boat. Somehow grabs that and starts jabbing at the shark. So third reference now to jabbing at the shark, and it's too much. The shark just gnawing away. Eventually bites down on Quint. I didn't notice if we get to see the shark's eyes roll over though.
I don't remember that. I
I
think I
don't know
would
if we
have.
do. Yeah. It seems like that would have been the spot for it because again, throwback to the story, but they may not have made the shark available not knowing he was going to say that too.
Right. Yeah.
So at this point, Quint gets bitten in half, just like Herbie Robinson, blood flying out of his mouth. He's not jabbing at anything anymore. The shark's like, I got him. And he sinks back out of the boat into the water. We see the top half of Quint, completely lifeless, just get dragged under by the shark.
Yeah.
Now we're down to Brody, the most helpless person on a boat. And this is where
Yeah. So I just wanted to say too, I to this day though, that part where Quint spits out the blood and there's like a gurgling noise still bothers me.
Mhm.
Like of the stuff in the movie, the quote unquote gory stuff, that one still bothers me.
Mhm.
There's something really more grotesque about that than like these murders you see in like a slasher film.
Right.
I
Yeah.
it there's just something that it seems kind of real, even if maybe it isn't realistic if you got bitten in half.
Mhm.
I don't know,
Well,
but
I think that's the thing about it, though, is because we know that people really do die from shark attacks. This is a very
yeah,
real thing. If you take a movie like Halloween, where yes, you have a killer, he'll cut you, he'll crack your skull open, whatever the serial killers are going to. Yes, those things could happen in real life, and unfortunately they do. But this is something that you've invested in Quint. At this point, whether you love him or hate him, there's a part of you that just wants him to make it.
Yeah.
And this is his finality, but there is that realism that this is a real thing that goes on in the world. Sharks
Yeah.
will bite people.
Yeah.
It's not their typical thing. I mean, they don't normally attack people, but in a case like this, this could very well happen. So I think there's that add of realism. Plus, there's like that, man, the shark finally won.
Yeah. Yeah. In a big way.
Hmm.
It's not like he dragged him under and he drowned. It's like, no, he
Yeah, he didn't
he
get the
punished
drowning.
him.
Yeah,
He punished
exactly.
him.
And it
Yeah.
almost feels personal for all the sharks that Quint killed at that point,
Yeah.
which is an unfortunate result that we get in Jaws: The Revenge that we're not going to talk about.
Yeah. Oh,
So, yeah.
so one other thing too, just about that horrific scene, and in general, the amount of gore in the movie, though, I've heard a lot of people, younger people watching it now say this was PG. And it's like you didn't have PG-13 back then, so it was
Right.
either PG or R. So
Hmm.
the defining line but man, it's intense. I mean, I saw it when I was 9 years old,
Right.
and maybe that's why that scene still bothers me today,
Hmm.
because I was so young when I saw it. But yeah,
Well, sound design will play a big impact in that, and I think you're right. The gurgling of it added a level of realism that the visual of the blood couldn't really deliver.
yeah,
Because now it's visceral, now it's physical. I mean, you get it visually, but now you're like, oh my God, what is his body going through? And it just kind of leads you into a bigger element of realism, I think.
yeah, yeah,
But I would say, yes, by today's standards, this movie is incredibly tame. When you've got movies like Saw, and I don't know if you've ever seen any of those, but they're very graphic.
yeah,
And
yeah,
as they've gone on, they've gotten more and more graphic,
yeah,
and that's almost the point of the movie now, is how gory can we make? We don't even care about the storyline anymore. It's
yeah.
all about the visual effect. And this is about storytelling. And I think there's the right element of gore for this movie,
Oh yeah, yeah,
especially since they dialed back the scene with the pedophile, and they dialed back the gore with the Kittner murder. And everything else is really more implied
oh
up to
yeah,
this
yeah,
point.
yeah. Yeah, but it's very intense
Hmm.
and just um, yeah.
Yeah.
The intensity, and then to get that scene, I think just kind of yeah. For
Yeah.
me, it's I would certainly, if PG-13 were available, then I would have given it that.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
and there's a little bit of language too,
mhm.
but yeah,
Plus, remember, this was all new kind of movie making. They didn't really know how to rate this stuff either.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, well, there's not a lot of cussing in the movie. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
no
some
sex,
violence, no sex. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
Although
there's
there's a little nudity in the
mhm,
beginning too. Again, the PG
right. Yeah.
only. Yeah,
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 I really think it should have gotten an R for the time, to be honest,
yeah, yeah.
But what haunts me more than the gurgling, honestly, is that last shot of Quint. Just his arms lifeless in the water, just gently like, after all this violence, just gently and quietly being brought under. That actually haunts me more than his murder.
Yeah, and it throws back to the first scene in the movie, essentially, where after the death it goes quiet.
Hmm.
So it's like, yeah, he's dragged under lifeless, and it's quiet all of a sudden,
Yeah,
after the screaming and all the violence and everything, and then you're like, you're sort of left to dwell on what just happened.
right.
Yeah,
And now what we come to realize in the audience is that we're left with Brody. The least likely guy to survive this is the only one left. But there's a shot that they show of the boat, and you see land in the distance. And I don't know how I feel about this, because you want the feeling of isolation, that they can't be like, nobody's watching this go on. No one's anywhere near them. They're really isolated out on their own. But you see a little bit of rocky strata, and I thought, are they really not that far off the island anymore? Can
yeah.
somebody be watching this and call the Coast Guard and go, hey, there's a boat out there. It looks like it's sinking. I don't know that I like that.
Well, it's funny, and again, was that just unintentional
Mm,
or was it intentional? I could
yeah.
see intentional in the sense that we want to give a glimmer of hope
Hmm.
because up to what's gone on in the last few minutes, it's like you got
Yeah.
no chance in hell of getting out of this.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and like even if you do kill the shark, you're out in the middle of the ocean.
Right. Yeah, you easily might swim in the wrong direction,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
But I think too, even if they were able to, like, let's say that they saw the orca sinking and you call the Coast Guard, it's going to be long underwater before anybody gets out there. So
yeah.
you still, it's almost ironic if they're that close to shore and still completely helpless,
Yeah.
you
But then
know.
the other thing too is the boat. There's sort of it seems like it's gonna go down in a few seconds at some point. Like
Yeah.
he's up in that crow's nest, but the crow's nest is like a foot off the water or something
Right.
like.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I always got the sense as well, is the water like only maybe 10 feet deep or something because the boat
Yeah.
doesn't go all the way down
Yeah, it,
quickly.
it magically starts sinking very slowly,
Yeah.
just long enough for him
It
to get
it
the shot.
lifts
Yeah.
like to one side, but it's
Mhm.
still going down.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, before that, though, to set that shot up, we get Brody kind of is in the cabin. I think at this point, like, I don't know what would be going through my head. I would just be looking around for anything that might be able to help me.
Yeah.
So we get this wonderful shot of him, the water levels rising and all around him, and then we see the shark come up from the window and just smash through the window because apparently the shark knows that Brody's in the cabin and he's still hungry, and he's like, "Hey, I'm not. You don't leave food on your plate."
Yeah.
So he smashes through the window. Brody sees the compressed air tank floating and tries to bash the shark with it in a very bizarre way. Because the way he's holding it, he's got his hand at the bottom end of it, but he's bashing the shark with the bottom end of it. So he's basically bashing his hand into the shark's mouth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I can understand like the sort of you want that blunt end
Hmm.
like to hit him. But on the other hand, it's like if I was in that terror, I'd just be swinging that thing like a club,
Yeah, yeah.
pounding at the shark. Yeah,
Mhm. And they
yeah.
are very heavy. I get that they're hard to manipulate and he's in an enclosed space, but yeah, it seems like a weird thing to put your hand in between your weapon and the thing you're trying to hit.
Yeah.
What would be funny if this was done as a comedy, like he would knock out a shark's tooth and another one would pop up, he'd knock it out again, another one would
Yeah.
pop up, That would be like the Keystone
Yeah,
Cops version of
yeah,
this.
or he slams his hand in between the shark and the tank, and then it's
Right. Yeah,
like,
he's broken his hand, right?
yeah,
But what's important about why this scene had to happen is because this is where he eventually just throws the tank in the shark's mouth because he's not doing any damage. So
right,
his best thing is maybe the shark will choke. If I just fill his mouth with stuff,
yeah,
maybe that'll kill him or make him go away at least. So what I didn't think about until recently, actually, and it kind of surprised me, is that there's a difference between what we've seen in the shark previously and what we see in the shark now. And when you think about it, it's pretty disgusting because caught in the shark's teeth are all these flaps of skin,
yeah,
which is Quint.
yeah, yeah. Pieces of his jacket and
Hmm.
whatever, yeah, is remaining in there,
Yeah, it
which,
never it never dawned on me until recently where I was like, holy crap, that's
yeah,
Quint he's looking at, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So as the boat is sinking, he throws the tank in Jaws's mouth. Jaws is like, "This sucks," and he backs off a little bit. As the boat is sinking, Brody grabs the pole, which has a bit of a sharp poker on the end of it. He grabs the rifle, which I would think would not be able to fire because it would be wet, and gunpowder typically doesn't work when it's wet. But magically, it's okay. So he starts climbing up the mast because it's the only thing left that will keep him out of the water. And he sees the shark coming at him again, and he tries to jab at it with the pole, and he does make a little bit of progress. We see a little bit of blood coming out of the shark, but it's not. I mean, it's not a big
Yeah.
or anything like that. It's not really doing much. I mean, the shark's got three, spears in him with barrels on him. He's been jabbed at by two different people. This little thing is not hurting him.
Yeah. The shark backs away
Mhm.
for whatever reason to get some momentum.
Yeah.
Or was he just like, well, I'm not getting anywhere in this
Mhm.
position? Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I think that's the thing is it knew that that attack strategy wasn't working. It's not making
Yeah.
progress. It's incurring more damage. So I'm going to try something different. And it gets away from Brody, goes kind of far out, actually.
Yeah.
It seemed a little excessive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as he's coming towards him, of course, Brody is shooting at him. You see the shots hitting near the shark, and then we get the classic line, "Fire, you son of a b-"
No, smile. Smile, you son of a bitch. Isn't
Is
that
that?
what he
Oh,
says? So what's
oh, I thought he said fire. Oh, when the shark was coming at him, he's like, blow up," because I think he
which I
thought,
didn't like, but go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
because he thought if he shot the tank, it would explode the shark. So he had the right strategy. But
Yeah.
but I thought he said "fire, you son of a bitch," meaning the tank. I thought he was talking about the tank. But
So
I
this
can
is
see what you're saying. Smile so I can hit the tank.
so this is a point of a contention because I remember people at the time, and maybe it's only what I believe, but I
Hmm.
remember people at the time saying he said "die, you son of a bitch."
Oh.
I think he said "smile," like he wanted to see the inside of his mouth.
Hmm.
I wonder if we can find a source that'll tell us what actually he said, or what was scripted. But yeah. But I'll tell you, I didn't like that he was saying "blow up" because I would have thought it was better if she just shoved the tank in the mouth, hoping he would choke on it or
Hmm.
whatever, and then he's down to his last thing. It's like, I got this rifle, I'm just going to shoot at him as I hope I get a lucky shot in the head or something, and
Right.
he happens to hit the tank and it blows
Hmm.
up. That would have
Yeah.
been better than, like, I know if I hit the tank it's going to blow up and kill the shark.
Well, the only reason I think that justifies his strategy here is because Hooper said earlier, "You mess with these things that are going to blow up."
Yeah.
The way he emphasized that line
And
earlier, but it got in Brody's head because there was another point where when Jaws rocks the boat and those tanks start to move, Brody runs over there to brace them.
yeah,
So
so he
we had
knows.
that. Yeah, so he's got it in his head that they're dangerous and all it takes is next to nothing to make them explode, which is
And
not true.
yeah, and maybe he thought they were just going to blow up because the shark would crush it in its mouth,
Yeah.
puncture it. That's
Hmm.
possible, and in
Yeah.
that case I could kind of see him saying that. I mean, these are like tiny criticisms that, over the years that I've had, but in terms of working up the intensity and the music at that point, and everything is just working to this terrific crescendo, which, in the book, the shark dies of exhaustion. It's like anticlimactic. Whereas this,
Does it really? I don't remember that. I don't remember how
yeah,
it ended.
yeah, it just, well, first of all, like, Hooper gets killed too,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
and then the shark kind of just like dies, because, which is more realistic. It had, like, all kinds of barrels and had been stabbed a
Oh,
whole bunch of
yeah. Yeah,
times and
exactly. Like
shot.
it's
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 like,
had a bad day. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So I asked ChatGPT to see what I asked it. Did Brody say "smile, you son of a"? And it says yes, he did, but the line comes off right before he finishes the word. It does confirm "smile, you son of a."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that I was thinking, I always thought it was
I've
fire, thinking the tank exploding, but that does make sense. I could
Yeah.
also see die. I mean, any of those would have really
Yeah.
been reasonable. Yeah.
And plus the way they filmed the scene, he right when he says that, the shark kind of, I don't know if it's the shark supposed to be turning or the camera angle turns, but it's
Mhm.
like it turns to you and it looks like he's kind of got a smile on his face with the
Yeah, it
tank in
does.
his mouth.
And
Yeah.
and there's a really great underwater shot of the shark coming at you, and he's just chomping.
Yes.
Because that's
Yeah.
the one thing the shark just chomped all the time. And when it was in the water, when it was out of the water, just constant chopping, which I don't really know if that's what sharks do. But again, 1974. But you get a clear shot of that tank, and you get all the flesh hanging off of the shark's teeth, and as it's cruising through towards Brody. I think the better ending would have been Brody's got the only thing he's got left is the rifle, and he goes to shoot the shark, and the rifle doesn't fire.
and he gets killed.
And he gets killed. Yeah, that
Yeah.
would have been a great ending, because that would have been more realistic, I think.
Yeah.
But so they do a fire you son of a. I don't know why they cut it off at bitch. I don't know why that wasn't in there, unless that was one of those, hey, if you do this, we're going to have to give you an R rating. I would have thought Spielberg would have wanted an R rating.
Yeah.
Because that's going to drive more people to go, wow, this movie must be something. We better go see it. Not that he needed it, obviously, being the first blockbuster in history, but I would have thought he would have gone for an R rating.
Yeah. Oh, so they do cut it off, the bitch. Then. Yeah. And what's interesting too, again, about sort of a throwback to earlier in the movie. So, come down here and shovel some of this shit, right when the shark pops out, and then it blows up when he's smile, you son of a bitch.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So at this point, this is another one of the most, I think, amazingly done shots, and also music. I love the music here, because as the shark went under the boat, we talked about the strum across the harp strings, and here we're getting just these little plinks of harp in here as the shark is, has been blown up. Blood in mass is coming out of it, clouding the water. There's just this wonderful plinky little harp playing behind it. And I love the way that this was shot, because I think it's a pretty realistic, or at least a realistic looking portrayal of if an animal's body were to suddenly be ripped open, you would have the blood just flowing out of the veins, and it's slow because it's floating down in the water, as things, again, like the spear, wouldn't just drop very quickly. So many elements, but the way that the blood is coming out and cloudies up our vision until it just turns black, brilliant.
Yeah, and I also wondered, were they implying that it was Hooper's point of view, that he had seen it, or not? It could be either, but somehow Hooper's got to know it's all over,
right
when he comes up, so you assume he saw something happen.
But where was Hooper the whole time? I mean, if he was staying at the bottom to avoid the shark, I guess I can understand that, but also he's going to run out of air at some point.
Yeah. And
so
again, how far was the bottom?
Right. How far was the bottom, and how far had he been from wherever the boat might have drifted?
Yeah, I to your point about you see the shore in the distance. I over the years have thought they were in much shallower water at that point. They had been heading towards shore. Hooper doesn't seem to go down too far to hide on the bottom, nor does the spear take too long to get down there. And then, as I said, Hooper had to know the shark got blown up, so he sees it. Yeah, he's not going to hear it. He sees it. And I mean, maybe he would hear it, actually.
It could have only been 20, 30 feet. It might not have been much. It's really hard to say, because sometimes underneath there's just drop-offs, and sometimes the ocean isn't that deep for a couple of miles. It's really amazing the way that our Earth is designed.
And the boat, when Brody's just sitting there after everything is all said and done, the boat isn't completely submerged. He's leaning on something. So I took it as it wasn't that deep, enough for the boat to still, like, part of it hit the bottom and it's sticking out a little bit.
Right. I mean, there were still a couple of barrels on the boat that never got shot off, because I think they started off with 5. So there would be a couple of barrels maybe keeping it a little bit buoyant, because everything fell off the boat. You can see the debris everywhere, so it's not like it really weighs as much anymore. But it looks like he's kind of hanging on to what's left of the crow's nest a little bit when Hooper pops up, because he's not moving. He's got the gun. He's like, I don't even know what to do now. And thank God I'm just dealing with the fact that I'm still alive.
And exhausted.
Yeah. So Hooper pops up, and I would have been terrified at that, like,
Oh
because I'm
yeah.
like, is this another shark? What else is out here that I'm in danger of? Because yeah, I killed the one shark, but I also just let a lot of blood out into the water, and could be very possible that another animal has smelled that and come running.
Yeah.
So
Do you
maybe I'm
even
not
know there was
safe.
only one shark? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. Yeah,
they
yeah,
talk
very.
about that during the movie, but there's
Mhm,
really, the rogue theory, but there's
mhm.
really nothing to say that there couldn't have been a pair of them.
Yeah, yeah, very much
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
So, so he sees Hooper and he's just relieved. I think mentally he doesn't even know. Like I don't know if he's really comprehended what's even happened to him at this point.
right.
But I mean, obviously the adrenaline and the exhaustion and all that has just been a little bit of a back and forth battle. And he relaxes when he sees Hooper, and Hooper swims up to him and looks around, and they just start laughing. And then Hooper says Quint, and Brody says no. So Hooper now knows that Quint is dead, that the shark got him. And then they look around and figure out how they're going to get to safety, because obviously, again, the survival instinct kicks in, and they take a couple of the barrels, they rig them up, and they start kicking toward shore. And we get a great piece of dialogue to end this film with that I think is absolutely fantastic. And I'll let you deliver that, Mark.
Yeah, I will. But before we get there, I just wanted to say I thought the piece of dialogue about asking about Quint was done. It's minimalistic. It's
Hmm.
Quint and it's no,
Yeah.
and there's a little, like, I think, like one note of just like one sad lingering note
Hmm.
as they look around, like it's like, yeah, they had kind come, even with all that happened and all the bullshit he did, they still mourn his loss.
Yeah. Well, I
um
mean, when you've been in an intense situation with somebody,
yeah,
even if you, I mean, I've had people that I just downright did not like that I've worked with, but they get in a car accident or something, and you don't want them to
oh
hurt or
yeah,
anything. You want them to be okay. You go through something like this with somebody, I mean,
yeah,
there's a potential
there's a
bond
bonding.
for life here. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, not in Quinn's case, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, they're kicking into shore on the barrels, which again is a great, um a, a great, what's symbolism or whatever, that these are
Mhm.
the lifeline kind of thing. A throwback, I think, and again, intentional or not, Moby Dick. I don't know if you've ever read that story or seen the
Mm-mm.
movie, but the guy
No.
Queequeg, he thinks he's gonna die at one point, and he carves his own coffin.
Mm.
And in the end, when Moby Dick wrecks the ship and everything, Ishmael, that's his lifeboat. He's on top of that coffin at
Oh,
the end. So
jeez.
I almost took this thing as them on the
Mhm.
barrels as kind of a throwback to
Oh,
that.
right, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. They're talking about, I think Brody says, "Oh, I think what's today?" And they don't even know. Hooper's
Yeah.
like, Wednesday or Tuesday, and then Brody goes, "Oh, I think the tide's with us." And then Brody says, "I used to hate the water." And Hooper goes, kind of half chuckles, "I can't imagine why." And then it's again, it, they could have done this thing of like, oh, they get to the town and there's
Hmm.
some closure there, but
Yeah,
no, it's just the perfect way to end the movie. The credits start coming up, and you're wondering, do they even make it to shore? And if
right.
you watch way in the distance as the credits are coming up, you finally see them kind of get out of the water.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that the way that they shot that. And but there's something that was kind of funny. When he says when Brody says, "I think the tide's with us," Hooper says, "Keep kicking."
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
shut up and kick. What else is he gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. And did
It's
he
kind
he
of a
didn't
weird
stop,
line.
and he didn't stop kicking either.
Yeah, he didn't
He was,
stop to talk to him,
no, so that, not like, oh yeah, by the way.
But here was my reaction to when he says, "I used to hate the water." Do you not still hate it? Because I would think that right now you would hate it more than you ever have after what you've just been through.
Yeah, and yeah, the motivation behind the dialogue was, it just like to really try to break the ice joke,
Right, yeah.
or is it that, I don't know, after surviving this, I'm not scared of the water
Well,
anymore.
they do seem to have a relaxed confidence about them at this point, don't they? They're not
Yeah,
afraid of the water. They're just focused on the task and getting back to land and to safety. But it's not like I get the sense that they're like, keep your eyes out for something else. You know, there's a lot of things in this water. I don't get that sense at all, which I think for me, I probably would have that at least in the back of my mind that there's other stuff out here.
yeah. I also question whether those barrels were the right way to get in.
Oh, yeah?
It seems like they would cause a lot of resistance the way they're
Oh,
shaped, cutting
yeah.
through the
Yeah, that's
water.
true. That's
Yeah.
true.
If you're going to float on them and just say,
Hmm.
well, okay, we'll try to paddle or something in
Like lay on your
slowly.
belly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but trying to kick the barrels with them in front of you, they'll keep you afloat. But
Yeah.
man, it seems like that'd be hard.
That's true. That's a lot more effort. That's a good point.
You're taking
I
those
never
barrels
thought of
in with
that.
you, essentially.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think that this ending was great. I love that we actually do get to see them climb up on the beach if you're paying close attention. I really like that shot. The music is great because the music also is like they're safe, they're fine, you don't have to worry anymore. And I thought that was great because at first you're like, they're not safe yet. That was my
Yeah.
initial thought was they are not safe until they are on that beach.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and if it
And
was any other horror movie, some creature would jump out of the water and eat them, you know, because they always go too far. But I thought this was a great ending. I love the music. I love the almost there's something about the way that they shoot this too that looks a little bit surreal. The way it's kind of slightly out of focus.
yeah.
There's something to be said for that, and just you know, you watch through the credits because you want to see them get on that beach.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think I don't to your point, I don't think they would end the movie like that this year because I've heard some younger viewers like, oh, that's how it ends. I wanted to see them go back to town and there's a big celebration, and
Mhm.
I'm like, no, the whole point of this is the story is over for Hooper and Brody.
Right.
They're done. They're safe.
Hmm.
That's all that freaking matters.
Yeah.
Whether the town thinks they killed the shark or not, to
Hmm.
those two, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They know it. And that's enough for them.
I could
And
just see the mayor going, "You don't have the tank, though."
yeah, 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 yeah.
You
Where's
know,
Quint? I
right?
don't know.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Or
So,
people have brought that up. It's like, well, did Hooper grab a piece of the shirt just to tell
right?
him?
Yeah. See,
Yeah,
I told you.
yeah,
Yeah, that would have been hilarious. He's like,
yeah,
"Look, I got the whole mouth." You know.
yeah,
Yeah. It is such a well told story. I think there are a certain amount of happy accidents that made this film work as well as it did. Had the
yeah,
shark worked the way that it was expected to, Stephen wouldn't have been forced to have a lot of the drama, telling the story without showing it. He wouldn't have had a lot of those elements. I think it would have been a very different movie. But I think there was also a lot of just massive effort put in to make this film be absolutely amazing. The cast, down to the people making it look like it was July when they're actually shivering. The camera angles, the cinematography, that it just everything in this movie came together. Happy accident or not, this is a masterpiece. This is a film that you show to students and say that's how you make a movie.
yeah, yeah. And I think I saw one interview with I don't know if it was a screenwriter or somebody in the movie, but they were saying about the happy accidents, or you know, this type of stuff happens, and is there sort of some supernatural force that it's like everything comes together to make this masterpiece, the accidents and the hard work,
Hmm.
that without one or the other, it's not the same film.
Right.
Um, you know, it really is. It's very close to being like, even with the flaws we pointed out, it's very close to being just a perfect piece of art.
Right.
Yeah,
And there's happy accidents in everything. I mean, you look at Sweet Emotion, the vibra slap breaking while they were trying to record it and just leaving it in because it's a cool effect. Sting, falling on the piano at the beginning of Roxanne and them leaving it
yeah,
in. I mean, there's things that happen that make things come together. But the thing I'll say in Steven Spielberg's credit is that he didn't give up. He found ways to make things work despite all the challenges. He believed in this film. He really saved his career by making
hmm
a film that was an incredible story, and he kept it together. a very young, inexperienced filmmaker that just had the guts and the fortitude and the creative desire to keep working at it until it worked. And that's why it's one of my favorite movies. It's some of the best storytelling, some of the best experience without telling me the story. Just let me live in it.
Yeah. And I think, when I mention to people that it's my favorite movie, and I'll get the pushback of like, well, yeah, the shark looks fake or whatever. I'm like, you're missing so much of the movie.
Yeah.
You could almost not even see the shark, and it would be a fantastic film.
Hmm.
The first half of the movie, from a storytelling standpoint, is phenomenal. I
Yeah.
mean, it really is, and that's why it's my favorite. It really has less to do with, you know whether the practical effects were good or not, or whether those hold
Right.
up. That's completely
Hmm.
a side issue.
Yeah.
It's all about the acting, the storytelling, the score,
Hmm.
and the visual shots in it,
Right.
as opposed to that, comparing it to like, oh, if they had CGI, it could have been better. No,
Right. I mean, there's
no.
there's things to me that stand out just because I naturally catch continuity a lot. It's not something I try to do, but I catch it, and when I do, I kind of can't unsee that. But this is such a great film that other than just, pointing this out for observation or trying to understand, like, how many barrels do we have right now? And like other than that kind of stuff, it's a flawless movie as far as I'm concerned. Those little things don't bother me at all. There's some movies where the movies aren't good enough for me to not see that. I take a
Yeah.
movie like the Batman movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where the Tyrannosaurus statue is falling down from the wall and it screams. And I'm like, I'm
uh
pretty sure a frozen statue doesn't have vocal cords, just like Jaws the Revenge, the shark screams, and apparently sharks have vocal cords all of a sudden. That kind of stuff. Like, you can take me into any world you want. I don't care. You could take me into the never ending story, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, any of them. And as long as what you're showing me is within the continuity of that world, I will find it 100% believable.
yeah.
When you start taking me out of things like having inanimate objects that can make sounds that don't have a reason to make a sound, that's where you start losing me,
Yeah, yeah.
you
No,
know.
no, agreed.
But I don't
Yeah,
I don't feel that there's anything in this movie that really takes me out of it. Not enough for me to say, yeah, that bothers me, or every time I watch this scene, it reminds me of this. Nothing in this film.
yeah, yeah. Agreed. It's almost like it's kind of a monster movie with a real monster,
Yeah.
that perhaps is a little bit exaggerated.
Hmm.
I'll give it that, right? But
Right.
this is something that could potentially happen.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, before we wrap up, I've got a couple of shark facts that I thought I would share that are kind of
Okay.
interesting. So, Quint and Hooper are debating whether the shark is 20 or 25 feet. The average great white is actually 15 to 20 feet. So, that's not an incredibly unrealistic view
Hmm.
of what a shark can reach. The females are usually slightly larger than the males. Don't tell the males that, they'll have a hard time with it. The largest great white shark known that's been recorded was 21 feet, caught off the coast of Cuba in 1948.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to ask that. So,
The
actually,
largest known living shark, which has been named Deep Blue and is believed to be well over 100 years old, is measured at 20 feet. So still a, nice piece of living machinery there. There are unsubstantiated reports of sharks reaching 26 feet, but nothing has ever been, documented. You know how it is. What do they go, like a fisherman's tale? Oh, that shark was about 25, 26 feet. When you're in the water and you have no scale, which is why Brody needed to go out on the pulpit, um, you know, that's that. So there was, of course, the famous megalodon shark that was known to be 50 to 60 feet, and they found fully intact jaws from megalodons, and they really are that big. When they compare a megalodon tooth to a great white tooth, the great white tooth looks like a kid's toy, and
Yeah,
it's
you've
really
seen
amazing.
that picture with like a group of guys inside the
Mhm.
megalodon
Yeah,
jaws.
it's like six full-grown adults, two high, three across, still can fit inside of that. Now, I
Yeah.
mean, just imagine that thing coming at you.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, now
You're
the
gonna need a bigger,
yes.
ocean liner, I guess it is.
Now, to put this in perspective, okay, the average school bus, just think of like if you live in America, I'm not talking about like the European tour buses and the double deckers and all that, just the average American school bus is 35 to 40 feet. A
Wow.
megalodon is 50 to 60 feet.
Yeah. Wow.
So imagine something bigger than a school bus coming at you. Um, I don't think an air tank is going to get you out of this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's
I mean,
crazy.
the scale of that is so hard to imagine.
Hmm.
You know, it really, really is. A couple of pop culture references. Kevin Smith, famous filmmaker, is a huge fan of Jaws. In the movie Clerks, he did a little nod to Jaws when Randall is eating some corn chips, and he's dipping them right into the salsa container because, of course, you know, he just takes whatever he wants off of the shelves and starts eating it. And he's moving the corn chip around in a circle and going dun 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 salsa shark. So nice little tie. And then in Kevin Smith's next film, Mallrats, you have Jason Lee playing the character of Brody Bruce, and you have Jeremy London playing the character of T.S. Quint.
Oh, okay.
Then in
Didn't
his
catch that.
then in his third film, Chasing Amy, he really leveled up because there is a scene in a restaurant that is shot at night. There's one lamp that's kind of glowing over the table, and you have two characters that are arguing over who has the more intense sex scar,
Okay.
including a scar where a leg is brought up onto the table to show the scar. So very much a nod in both specifically in set decoration and in how that all plays out.
Yeah.
So very nice scene between two of the characters. And the funny thing is, also in the movie, those two characters don't like each other.
Uh,
So that kind of
okay.
plays into it even
Yeah.
more, you know, whether intended or not. And then finally, Kevin Smith apparently lent his voice to a Dungeons and Dragons pinball game. And as payment for this voiceover work, he agreed to have the pinball company send him the Jaws pinball machine,
Ah,
which
nice.
I have to say, I want one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be cool to have. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Wow.
of course, Jaws has gone on to spur on a. I don't. I honestly think people credit Jaws with the idea that we have so many shark movies because of Jaws. Honestly, I think that would have been a natural progression for monster movies anyway, you know,
Hmm.
but just for fun, I thought I would go to Tubi and take a look at some of the names that we have for current shark movies. Of course, we have the Sharknado parody of horror movies, but we also get Shark Night, Shark Bait, Shark the Beginning, Shark Season, Shark Lake, Shark Girl, Shark Evil, Shark Attack 2, Swim, Sharktopus, which is probably my favorite. Apparently, a
Yeah.
shark and an octopus got it on. We get bull shark, bait, 47 meters down, two-headed shark, shark waters, three-headed shark attack, Jurassic shark, Malibu shark attack, Shark Island, which is just kind of funny in and of itself. Then we've leveled up to five-headed shark, Ozark Sharks, Bull Shark series, Dino Shark, Shark Side of the Moon,
Uh,
six-headed shark, and there was a well, ice sharks. That's my favorite. A shark that attacks on the side of a mountain because sharks apparently can swim in snow now.
uh, this reminds me of, I used to play this game with people. If you were bored, it was just it'd be like pick a noun and then you would insert that noun into the titles of songs or TV shows or movies. And I remember doing it with Jaws, and one of my favorite was Little Jaws on the Prairie.
Oh yeah, Mad Libs were a fun thing. That's
Yeah,
kind of an offshoot of Mad Libs, but yeah,
yeah,
that's good. I like that. And having interviewed people from Little House on the Prairie, I can really
yeah,
appreciate that. Yeah,
yeah.
they're rebooting that.
Are they? Yeah.
Netflix is coming out with a new series of Little House on the Prairie. The series that was on in the 70s and 80s was not true to the books. It was
Mm,
based on the concept of the books. Laura actually only lived in Walnut Grove for a very short time.
yeah.
So all of that, the years of living there and going to school and all these, that's not real. Some of the characters were real, but they were in
Yeah.
different places. So they're actually going through and doing a much more true to the book version of it.
Uh,
So that should be interesting.
Yeah, and another sort of thing to mention about my late wife Gail, she was related to Laura Ingalls Wilder
Really?
because um, we found out doing some research that Gail was a direct descendant from one of the witches that was hung at the Salem witch trials, Martha Carrier, and so was Laura Ingalls Wilder. So, however
Wow.
that fit together. So Gail had a connection to her and a connection to Louisa May Alcott, who wrote the Little Women on two
Wow.
different sort of trees of her background. So yeah, yeah.
And you're related to someone who was on the Titanic. You've got quite the family tree, Mark.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the other thing is you go back far enough, everyone's related to
Oh,
everybody,
yeah.
but it's really cool to be able to do the direct line type of
Mhm.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Did she ever visit Salem?
Yeah, we did
Mhm.
actually. It's they've sort of turned it into this hokey thing where it's a combination of uh the history part, which I found interesting, but then there's the whole people who are Wiccans, and that it's like that, and then just sort of a kind of hokey horror Halloween witchcraft type of thing. But it was
Yeah.
interesting to go.
I would
Yeah.
imagine it's become quite commercial,
Yeah.
to prey on the tourists and all that. And it's interesting. Horrible events happened here. Let's make a fun tour. And it's I don't know. In a way, it's kind of inappropriate, but in another way, because if it's not done from a historical standpoint of here's where this happened, here's what led up to it, here's how it ended, like that kind of thing, where you're doing more of like a serious tour. I know there's like a lot of fun, hokey stuff up there, and I'm like that. I don't know. I feel kind of back and forth about that. I get it. Maybe it's good to turn tragedy into something that let's not be so hardcore about it and be understanding, but also understand that was a long time ago. We're not still doing this kind of stuff and doing it that way, but also like this is a historical thing where really bad stuff happened. Maybe we should be a little more respectful. I kind of am torn on that.
Yeah, and I mean they do have a memorial in the center of town to the people that were hung, and it took them till like the 1970s for I think the state of Massachusetts to kind of issue an apology to the families or
Wow.
whatever.
Mhm.
So they have that, but yeah, I think the memorial didn't come about till like the 70s or 80s, which is
Yeah.
kind of surprising. But yeah, the roadsides heading up to Salem, it's like they got just a picture of a witch on a broom flying, which is like that's kind of hokey
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly.
Also, I guess you can stay different event, but the Lizzie Borden house is actually a bed and breakfast, like
I've
where
heard
she
that. Yeah.
yeah, which I think is like kind of cool in a way you could stay there, but kind of not cool in a way
Right.
either. Like
Yeah.
it's I
I
don't
know
know.
that's a famous place for ghost hunters to go and do
Yeah, yeah,
investigations there. Yeah.
yeah.
Boy, talk about somebody who got away with murder. That
Yeah, I always said
unbelievable.
it's the O.J. Simpson of that era
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everybody in the town thought she did it, and
Hmm.
she just lived her life and ha ha ha, kind of,
Now, the
yeah.
witch trials, was that 1600s or 1700s?
1600s,
1600s.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So way back, yeah.
Yeah.
Then that's
It's
a whole interesting story.
it's so
Yeah,
hard to believe sometimes our history when you look at attitudes, especially based on religious beliefs and just lack of knowledge of how the world works. And to think the things that people would do to other people, like giving them a lobotomy if they read too many books. Like instead
Yeah.
of that being a sign of intelligence, it's a sign of insanity. And there was
Yeah.
a time where that actually was a thing. And it's just so hard to, I'm so glad I live when I do, at least when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And yet then you look at it and there's still things that we just do as humans, like scapegoating and making it so it's other people's faults.
Yeah,
And
gaslighting and
not and not addressing the real problem, but just kind of
I mean, we're just evolving from one set of problems into another, really. We just like to think that we're more intelligent now because we can explain it, but it doesn't stop people from doing it, which is kind of the problem.
Yeah.
But Mark, I cannot thank you enough. I've had so much fun. I know we spent a lot of time together covering this movie, but honestly, it's gone so fast. It just feels like this whole thing has only been a couple of hours and we're on like hour 7.
It really is. I did not realize that I could talk so much about the movie, but just as we went through each scene and discussing, I've come away with a bigger appreciation of the movie, and I didn't think that was possible. But just all these little things, and you're talking about the nuances and was this intentional or not, and whether it was or not, it's great. It's just I
used to have I should probably get back to doing this, but I used to do a gratitude journal where I would pick 3 random things and I would really think about them in depth. Like let's say a jar of peanut butter, and you think about, okay, well, this is nutritious, it adds value to me and all this stuff, right? Then you think about the person who manufactures it, and then you have to think about the person that manufactures the jar and everything that goes into those elements coming together. Then you have to take a step back and think about the people that are harvesting the peanuts, the people that make the machinery to turn it into peanut butter, and the people that make the product. Like when you start really digging into something and really looking at the finite things, I mean, even going back all the way to George Washington Carver, it's amazing the new appreciation you can have for something. And much like you, I never thought I could appreciate Jaws more than I do. But after this and thinking about all the elements and all the work everyone put into it, and I feel like I love it 10 times more than I did before 2 weeks ago.
Yep. Absolutely. And it deserves it. So
absolutely. Final note in correction, the chum vinyl that I mentioned early on, I do have the link to that in the show notes. That is only a 10-inch vinyl that is selections from the soundtrack. It is not the full soundtrack. There is another 180-gram version of the soundtrack that was released for the 50th anniversary. Little pricey, but it is 180 gram. I'm sure it's in some great packaging. The thing that I'm glad they didn't do, which is a newer trend to me at least with these vinyl re-releases, is to put liquid inside. I'm really glad that they did not do a red liquid with quint pieces vinyl edition. I think that might be tempting, but I'm glad that they have not at least done that.
Yeah.
Although I would probably buy it. I probably would be a sucker for it. I will admit. But check out the soundtrack. Check out, I'm sure there's some great stuff on the 50th anniversary editions. I have not watched them yet. But Mark, thank you so much. Check out the 70s Weekly Countdown with Mark and Pete. Again, links are in the show notes. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back on our regular schedule on Wednesday. And let's see, what do I have coming up? Oh, I think I have a pretty interesting podcast coming up next week. So stay tuned to check that out, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.